Anglais alternatif. Comme toujours, toujours alternatif. Hi everyone. Yeah, now you're hearing me. Well, I'm very... Yes, please, please. Is Charlotte here? Ricardo, Charlotte está por Zoom? Well, probably she's going to enter as soon as possible. So I'm very... Lolot. I knew you will be there. This is a very important panel for us. We are very, very pleased to co-organize this together with WMO and the EPCC. All the panelists, the brilliant panelists are here in front of us, except Charlotte Mogensen, that is in Copenhagen. I'm going to introduce very quickly all the panelists, and as well as myself and the other moderator, and then we are going to give the floor to one of our panelists to do a poem, and then we are going to start with the session. So I'm Patricia Morales, I'm the CEO of Philanthropic Tesorari. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself as a moderator.
So hello everyone, I'm Yihan Jones. I'm here representing the Economic Commission for Europe, chairing the Young Energy Working Group, and also currently together with WMO on the Youth Strategy Together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johan. So I'm going to introduce quickly each of our panelists. First of all, we have Alice Aevi. Where is Alice? I'm not seeing, she hasn't arrived yet. Well, we have Maria Paola Marquez, who is the Development Director at Youth for Nature Foundation, by Youth for Youth International Organization working at the intersection of nature and climate. She is a graduate from University of Brasilia and has a specialization in economics from Stockholm University. Over 7 years, she has championed human rights issues across the organization in Latin America, working on partnership development and fundraising in UNDP Brazil and doing advocacy. Then we have our dear Professor Peter Higgins, who is Chair of Outdoor Environmental and Sustainability Education at the University of Edinburgh School of Education. He was founding director of the United Nations Recognized Center of Expertise in Education for Sustainable Development from 2013 to 2024. His teaching and research are interdisciplinary, and his publications span a diverse range of related topics. He teaches extensively indoors, outdoors, and online, and he is recipient of the University Highest Award for Teaching, the Chancellor's Award. He has held a range of government and international advisory roles, and is currently a board member of the Scottish Government's Nature Advisory Agency, NatureScot. He's also chair of its Scientific Advisory Committee, and he's a member of the UK Joint Nature Conservation Committee. You are very welcome. Then we have my dear friend Charlotte Bettina Mogensen, who is, as I said, Program Director for the Ocean Program at Velux Fonden. Charlotte has a long career as government official working for the Danish Ministry of Environment and Danish Ministry of Food, Agriculture and Fishery. Prior to that, she held a position as Program Director at Velux Fonden. Before that, she was Ocean Advisory at the Danish Ministry of Environment, working on international oceans issues, and Head of Delegation for the Kingdom of Denmark to the Arctic Council Working Group on Protection of the Arctic Marine Environment. Charlotte is a former Deputy Secretary for OSPAR and the Bonn Agreement. Then we have with us Christian Moquet, who is head of the Master in Science, Conservation and Valorization of Marine Resources, MARES, at Université Côte d'Azur. With a PhD in marine biology and a passion for the ocean, he works to bring together the scientific, environmental, and socio-economic dimension of the marine world to value and better protect its treasures. Christo has been promoting blue growth for sustainable development of community for 10 years in a business school and non-profit organization, and since 2018, he is the director of the Interdisciplinary and International Program on Marine Resources, MARES, at Université Côte d'Azur. Then we have Claudia Cabezas. Very welcome, Claudia. Likanantai Indigenous People Representative. She's agronomist, president of the Association of Irrigators and Farmers of San Pedro de Atacama, the world's driest desert in Chile. She develops sustainable agricultural projects in the region. A mountaineer, Claudia is an advocate of ancestral culture for the conservation of biodiversity and food. And last but not least, we have Parneet Kaur, who is a sustainability and women empowerment advocate who is reinventing diplomacy and advocacy through the power of storytelling. As an emerging Indian poet who debuted at COP29 in Montreal in December 2022, she has performed at international conferences such as COP28 in Dubai, UNFCCC's Paris Committee of Capacity Building, the 53rd or 3rd St. Gallen Symposium, and Swiss Indian TEPA session in Switzerland. She is a creative communicator who works at the intersection of sustainability, policymaking, and empowerment. And today, she's going to give us a poem before starting this panel. So, Parneet, you are very welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So I am an Indian poet and the founder of Poetry for Planet. I use storytelling as a medium to share and advocate for climate action. Today I'm going to share a poem that is very close to me. It talks about my mom, the women in Punjab, and how women should be at the helm of climate action and agri-food systems. When I think of good food, I think of my mother, her ghee-laden bread. I think of my grandmother, her buttermilk and curd. I think of my aunt who plants mangoes in little pots. So I unbraid my hair all the way to the root, to the very first farmer, a young woman. I reckon she would sow wild berries playfully along the banks of a dainty river, for her children to harvest, yes, you and me. So I sow one and my sisters too as we walk in the footsteps of our great-grandmother. Yet, when I ask you to picture a farmer, doesn't your brain conjure up the image of a sweaty man holding a sickle? However, now far from truth as I speak of a saga unforetold, less than 2% women own land in my Punjab, the land of 5 rivers, yet none flow to the fields of my sisters. When I think of good food, I think of Ceres in Rome, who blessed humanity with the gift of agriculture. I think of Isis in Egypt, who saved man from man by offering him barley instead. I think of Annapurna in Kashi, who had God at the mercy of food. So, when I ask you to picture a farmer, is it a young woman, roughly my age, now? Thank you.
Very much, Parneet, for this moment that remembers the traditions, our identity, the role of our mothers, of our land, the Pachamama, as our ancestor in Chile would say. Now we are going to start with this first section that I'm going to moderate about this kind of introduction and the icebreaker. And to do so, we decided to ask you a first question, dear panelists. We all know that we do, and I'm going to introduce to Claudia, obviously, we all know that you do a lot of projects and you work on the fields and so on. But something, you have, each of you have something very special, and this is why you are here. And we were thinking, are you able to tell us what is or what are your unofficial talents? Could you tell us what makes you special? What is the difference? Because we have many people that have a lot of PhD, as Mr. Higgins, but you have something special. The same happens, yes, you're a leader because you have something special. The same happened to Maria, to Claudia, Christophe, and so on. So this is the first question for you.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Maria Paula, and I think my special talent is that I'm a very good shoulder to cry on. So whenever I'm with friends in stressful situations, I feel that I'm a very good friend to to support other people in my community. So I think this would be my hidden talent.
Alabalti Baine, Cayatapur, Pichaucota. Bienvenidos, queridos hermanos. Buenas tardes. Yo soy Claudia Cabeza Saraballo, agricultora de San Pedro de Atacama, de la comunidad del pueblo Licanantay. Bueno,
So I'm
yo
Claudia
creo
Cabeza
que a
from the community
lo que yo
Weekend
sirvo es mandando.
So
Por lo tanto,
I have the
me gusta
power
organizar grupos
to talk to
y
the other one what they
soy
have
muy
to
buena
do
para
to
coordinar
organize, to
para
coordinate
que las
people,
personas me ayuden a generar un objetivo. Entonces,
to
por
help
eso, por lo
them to
general,
get
siempre
to
me
an
ponen
objective.
ahí arriba para dirigir todo
So
esto, porque
probably
la
this
verdad es
is a
que
kind of talent.
es difícil dirigir a
It's
muchas
not
personas que
easy
piensan diferente,
to
que son
manage people
distintas.
that
Entonces, cuando hay una
feels and
persona que es
thinks
capaz de
different.
entender y comprender que
So when you
somos
have
muy
someone
variados y
that
que somos
is able
capaces
to
de sacar
understand that you
lo
have
mejor de
different
cada
kind
uno,
of people, but
así
you
que
can
por
take the
esa
best of
parte
each
he
one.
liderado a mujeres, a
So I've been able
agricultores, fui
to
parte de grupos juveniles
leader
y
young
me
people,
hace muy bien esto
agriculture
de poder dirigir a
and
la
it's something
gente
that
y
I
poder
have
coordinar
some
para que
talent
se logre un objetivo en común.
in order to achieve a common objective.
Well, it's a tricky question to start with. Really.
No, I know.
I guess, like any other scientist, I'm curious. Maybe I'm curious beyond science only, and so I always like to try to understand also other aspects of socio-economic aspects as well, like how we all live together. Sometimes it's tricky, but we try to live together. So our similarities, our differences, and so that's what invited me to, after a PhD in marine biology, go in maybe in the socio-economic world. So I would say I'm a bit too curious to specialize into something in particular, and I try to take the hand of people who initially they don't speak the same language. And I'm not talking about, of course, language like Spanish or French, but different language of disciplines, and try to connect them together.
Yeah.
Is this working? Yeah. I don't need to answer because it's the same as you. I suppose I've got lucky with interdisciplinarity over the years, and perhaps the curiosity for me extends to being quite good at not knowing stuff and finding stuff out because I don't know stuff. And alongside that, working with people who do know stuff and to work with them. So I've been very fortunate to learn from lots of people during my fairly long career. And I've sort of bumbled my way along, I think perhaps by being emotionally sensitive and aware of people as I work with them, to try, particularly in my own teaching, to let the landscape, let nature, let the coastline be the teacher, and then I get the benefit from people learning from those places. Thank you.
I think interdisciplinarity is one of my unique skill sets as well. But one of the things that I've discovered through my interaction with people is that when I perform and when people see my work, they're encouraged to write their first poems. So I have this unique skill of turning people into poets. People have never thought about it because I advocate for giving agency back to people. And in this space where we talk in English and the 6 UN official languages, we don't see representation and inclusion of some languages. At World Food Forum in Rome, I was invited as their official poet, and I remember as the founder of Poetry for Planet, I asked my team to do a multilingual poem, so they wrote it and I got it written on my sari, something that I'm wearing today. And one of the 2 lines in it were also in Swahili. Somebody came up and they felt represented, they felt included in the conversation. And this prompts people to be courageous, be vulnerable, and I really love that people are able to find their voice through my work. So it's a gift that people have helped me discover. That's my unique ability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So very interesting. I'm just only to repeat some words that you have said. You mentioned the curiosity. You mentioned the capacity to manage and leader other people, the capacity to listen the other ones. Emotionally sensitive. Really important that. And obviously the capacity to open new languages to the other one. So we're going to keep those words because I think it's resume what you are. It summarizes who you are. another question was that you all choose a meaningful work that consists of listening others and at the same time trying to make a point without imposing it, because we know that you are not gonna get it. So, what do you think young people and the adult are looking for today, and what are the main challenges that you have faced along that way? What are the main difficulties? And obviously, all of you have different point of view because some of you work in the field, other in university with a long career, so you have time that's in decades to compare. You work in other work, so the floor is yours. Who want to start with a question? Christophe, I think.
Not sure your sense well, but let's try. You asked, I think, two questions. So, what do we want?
Yes.
And
so the challenges that you have faced in this path of trying to work in the meaningful work, and at the same time, what do you think that young people and adults are looking for?
It's hard for me to tell what the others want. Maybe what with the people we work with and with our students, I think maybe it's what I say, we want to live together. And maybe if we come back decades ago, it was not mandatory like decades ago, maybe centuries ago. It was possible to live just with your community. And now we all live together. So and it's fantastic to be at the COP, really. It's for 2 weeks. It's, it's a big mess, but the whole planet, all the people living in the universe are in the same place and are represented here. And it's hard to work together because we once again have different languages, once again Spanish, French, English, but also different point of view initially. And to overcome that, it's really difficult. So I would say this will be my first challenge. And when I reflect back on interdisciplinarity, it's the same. I think you say something like that at the previous panel. We are all a bit stubborn. We know where we want to go before starting to work together, and I think this is the biggest challenge. It's to make the others really listen to each other and adapt their goals.
I think it's very nice when you say that we speak different languages, because we really do speak different languages in many different ways. And when I think about, like, I've been hearing so much about numbers and mathematics on the COP, and I think this is important to get other actors in this space to talk to private sector and other actors that need to see numbers and an impact in numbers. But and I think there's like rationality and science approach, and part of it, it's very important, but we must not forget about the emotional approach to this knowledge that we have, which are like dreams, which are emotions. And I think the power of art to convert these two perspectives, the rationality one and the emotional one. And we speak different languages, but we also have some points in which we agree. So we have to find the synergies. And I think being in this negotiation space, it means, like, for me, negotiation, it means that you're going to have to move. You have your ideas, you know where you want to get, but you get in the mind space that you need to move around things. This is why you're negotiating. So I think that youth, since I work for an organization that is a by youth for youth international organization, we always have the feeling that whenever we have youth on the room, we can push for more ambitious goals, and youth is more willing to work outside of the status quo that brought us into this crisis in the first place. So I think there is this youthful energy and flexibility and also joy to bring collaboration to the table. And also adults and experts in the field, they have the power to open doors and share resources and make connections. And I think having these two approaches and this intergenerational picture, they are very rich and they're very unique. So we can find authentic collaboration between young people that are just getting into the space, but they have this youthful energy, they have fresh perspectives, and older people that are already experts in these fields that can, they have already paved a way, and they can help young people to get into this path and also make meaningful change and participate meaningfully in negotiation rooms. So yeah.
Bueno, en el caso mío, el mayor desafío ha sido siempre el racismo, el machismo. Para nosotros como originarios cuesta mucho desenvolverse en la ciudad, en otros tipos de colegios donde no llegan los indígenas. Así que creo que ese desafío ha sido súper importante y por otro lado ha sido como el empuje que me ha dado a mí para poder seguir trabajando. Yo me relaciono y represento a mucha gente mayor. Trabajo con muchos adultos que trabajan en la agricultura, con ganaderos. Por lo tanto, yo comprendo mucho el lenguaje de la gente mayor y está muy triste, está muy preocupada por todo este cambio climático, porque ven que se disminuyeron sus aguas, porque ven que están extrayendo nuestro litio, en el caso nuestro en el Salar de Atacama. Y me siento una generación en transición que tenemos este objetivo de traspasarle a los jóvenes, pero todavía me cuesta mucho entender a los jóvenes. Por lo menos a mis jóvenes los veo muy dormidos. No sé si es así en todo el mundo, porque hoy día hablaba con una amiga sobre eso, porque no sé si es la tecnología, no sé, algo está pasando, que los jóvenes no todos están teniendo interés. Si tú ves aquí, la gente que lidera son pocos jóvenes, o sea, hay una buena cantidad de jóvenes, pero detrás de ellos hay 2 o 3 personas que los siguen. Entonces, en mi tiempo, cuando yo era joven, todos queríamos quemar el mundo y sacar terminar con todo este problema, pero veo que los jóvenes hoy día son más pasivos, tenemos que aprender de ellos, pero sí creo que nuestros adultos quieren traspasar esta información, quieren traspasar el lenguaje, quieren traspasar las costumbres, así que para nosotros, como grupo, junto a otra amiga que trabajamos juntas, nuestros desafíos son precisamente los jóvenes, traer más jóvenes, invitar más jóvenes, también por eso nos hemos sacado de la Fundación Mary, por lo mismo, porque necesitamos educar a nuestros jóvenes y ver de qué forma, tal vez ocupando la tecnología, ocupando el celular, el dron, no lo sé, el computador, algo para que ellos enganchen, porque siento una preocupación y por otra parte miedo, porque somos nosotros y después quién viene. Entonces, también hay, en el caso nuestro, en nuestro pueblo, hay una preocupación porque los jóvenes, como no participan, también están muy enojados por las malas negociaciones, también algunas cosas que han hecho las generaciones más mayores. Así que estoy muy agradecida de estas oportunidades porque he aprendido mucho, he conocido mucha juventud y me llevo toda esta experiencia y como ahora podemos conectarnos online, tengo muchas redes hoy día para que los jóvenes escuchen a estos otros jóvenes o a ustedes también, a los científicos, a las poetas y a todo el mundo para sensibilizar y ver a quién les vamos a dejar nuestra herencia, en el caso de nosotros como originarios. Así que siento que esta experiencia en esta COP, la COP pasada y en otros congresos, otros lugares que he participado, he logrado obtener de todo un poco. Y estamos armando un programa súper interesante para empezar a educar a los jóvenes ya desde enero y estamos buscando jóvenes ahí, han enganchado por lo menos unos 6 jóvenes y creemos que detrás de ellos van a venir más, así que eso.
Thank you.
So one of the challenges that I face personally as a young person is that I have been able to connect with people who are elder, youthful at heart, I would say. Poetry finds me, it has allowed me to connect with a lot of diplomats and ambassadors and people from corporate spaces. But somehow, some places I see that it doesn't ring a bell with the young people sometimes. And it is because I see that there's this need to be grounded in our realities, with our roots, and that's sometimes missing. The young people are not connected to their roots, which doesn't allow them to fully envision the force that poetry has. So I come from India, and India is the land of storytelling. The epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata, they run and they set the bedrock of our society, of our economics, of our politics. And when we are not connected with our roots, because that's what also climate change has a huge role to play, as it leads to cultural erasure when displacement happens. When that happens, our identities, our cultures, we are not connected, we are alienated, and that's what's happening with the young people today. And also with the more we are advancing technologically, there's this alienation. Right now, as I speak, in Delhi, there's so much pollution that the schools have been shut down. And I will be boarding my flight from Baku, and I'll be landing in Delhi. And as you know, that in that space is where the real culture lies. That's where you grow. And to see that being deprived, I don't even blame young people for that. It's because how we have advanced as a society. Maybe we are not really sure of what progress really implies, because we are more alienated as ever. So I think this is one of the challenges, to be able to connect with the roots and the tradition of storytelling, which is the tradition of our ancestors, and it is something that we are hardwired scientifically, biologically. That's why when we are kids, we grow up listening rhymes and poems, because that's how we are hardwired to register and grasp knowledge. So I think that is missing. But the way I see it being bridged is through music. And right now, as we see that young people like to dance, we like to dance, party, but the music can be transformed. We can have music that talks about climate action, talks about climate change. It could have the same beat and rhythm to it, but the lyrics could be changed, and that's how we can tap into the subconscious and include young people into storytelling on their terms, in their way. Yeah.
Thank you, Pete. We have talked about how to make the other really listen, and we finish with this other question: how do we connect between each other?
I'm glad you said that, because that's the response I was going to give, whatever the question was. It's about that connection idea. So a lot of my work has been on disconnection and reconnection, understanding the ways in which there are consequences to our actions, and trying to build this into an educational model. And so I kind of think about it in terms of kids and parents. What do young people want from their parents? They want time, they want respect, they want trust. And we often treat the youth of our nations as something other, some almost a separate species. And frankly, it riles me that we're talking about youth voice here, because there shouldn't need to be a youth voice. There should be just voice, in the same way that there shouldn't be women's voice or ethnic voice. There should just be voice. And it shows how marginalised we've become, that we don't even think that it's an odd thing to say we want to hear youth voice. I mean, what a ludicrous concept. And yet, of course, we're working in the direction of trying to normalise it so that it ceases to be a thing. So for me, I spend a lot of time with my students, in particular in residential settings, and it's that time, it's the opportunity to share stories and to share any kind of time together. And I think the other thing, in the panel I was on 2 days ago here, the digitalization of the world, we all know that we're all connected up. At least we think we are, digitally. And yet there is nothing less connecting than having to resort to an electronic abstraction run by some mega corporations in order to connect with other people. So there's some weird stuff going on out there. And for me, I like getting my feet wet and my hands dirty, and being with people in authentic contexts. Thank you.
What a beautiful moment. Thank you very much for this first part of the panel. Now I'm going to give the floor to Johan Seng for the second part about communication strategy and storytelling.
Thank you so much for giving so much insight in the first part, especially you were closing with the storytelling and how to connect with the students. So, but here, just as you mentioned, we are now in the areas of modernization and digitalization, every day we receive thousands and thousands of news and information and knowledge that we can have. But in the segment of all this knowledge, it is complexity, how you distinguish between the essential from the accessory one to communicate to the students, because we need to extract the most essential part also to spread to them. And also how you turn all this knowledge and all this data to something that can really touch people or student or even your peers' heart. If you could share any story of that, that would be really, really great. So maybe we start. Who wants to start with this? Yeah.
You don't really want to hear from me again directly after the last one, do you? Look, I've got a short PowerPoint presentation later, which I think will summarize an approach of where I'm trying to find simplicity within complexity in order to bring about some broader understandings. But I think I'd go back to the idea that you try to spend time focusing on whichever, for me anyway, whichever parts of the natural environment when I'm teaching in it are most useful for those young people I'm working with to learn from. So it in a way it gets through all of the mess if you just say, what can you learn from this place? What can you learn from this person? What can you learn from this activity? And then you try to link those ideas together rather than keep them as separate. So you build interdisciplinarity through engaging with ideas, engaging with places and spaces, and then with communities and individuals. But I'll show you an example of it later if there's time. No problem if there's not.
Yeah. So something to choose, maybe whatever the discipline or the type of knowledge I think we want to equip our students with. I think in this time where a lot of people are sure they know the truth, they have their reality, and a lot of people can be they can criticize things, but sometimes they have a lack of background knowledge. So I will say, to answer that question, what is important here, it's to develop critical thinking, but a good critical thinking, it relies on grounded truth, so real good knowledge. So whatever is the story we have to tell, we have to equip students with both critical thinking but also the real knowledge, and not, I'm sure about something, so I criticize you on what you think. No, let's share information together, not just points of view and predetermined point of view. So I know if we come back to that after, maybe for the types of communication we can develop, but basically it has to be adapted to the type of people we want to target. What we do at Université Côte d'Azur, but I'm more here to learn than to explain stuff, but we develop, for kids games, because we know that when we connect to kids, we can get the parents. Parents love to play with kids, so we create games so that parents and kids play together. What works well with teenagers, it's comic books. So we are developing comic books. So we work on the ocean a lot. So it's, for example, the idea of these comic books, it's not to give information about knowledge, about climate or the ocean, but more to connect with people through comic books. So creating comic books which are by itself a story, and the readers, they don't know, but they listen, they learn about marine protected areas through investigations, or the history of the ocean through science fiction, like going back in time. And also we develop other measures for the instructors, the teachers, the colleagues, the decision makers. So we already talked about that before, but our scientists, they develop books to sum up their knowledge, also advocacy documents, so that our community can share the information. So, well, to sum up, according to the type of people, we adjust our strategy.
A ver, en el caso nuestro
In our
existe una
case,
historia de mucho ultrajo, de mucha
it's a
violencia,
very- a
de
story
gente
of
que
lot
llegó
of
a invadir.
violence.
Por lo tanto, por
that
mucho
invade
tiempo
us.
nosotros, cuando
So for
llega el
many
español, una de las
years,
cosas
when the
que
Spanish
de los
arrives,
castigos más severos que hacían para que nosotros
one of
no
our
habláramos
worst
nuestra lengua era cortarnos
punishments
precisamente la lengua.
were
Entonces,
to
en
cut
base a
our
eso, de
tongues.
todo este miedo de
considering
nuestros
this
antepasados, de
fear
nuestros adultos, la
of
mayoría de
those
las
ancestors,
tradiciones, costumbres se traspasaban en silencio. Y nuestros
The
mayores
majority
hacían
of
todo
our
prácticamente a
traditions,
escondida para que las
used to
personas que
cross
estaban a cargo
generation in
de todo
silence.
esto, primero fue el virreinato del Perú, después Bolivia,
Because
hoy día
it was
Chile,
something completely forbidden. So
querían
during
ocultarlo. Por lo tanto, mi generación aprendió
during
siendo
the
intrusa y te ibas
colonization,
detrás de la
it was
abuela,
something
detrás de la
hidden.
mamá,
So in my
mirabas
generation,
porque era tan oculto
we
esto del pago a la
tried
madre
to
tierra,
understand what our mothers
llevar
and uncles were
nuestras
doing. It
aguas
was
a la
something
montaña,
like
todo esto era
secret.
muy
All
oculto,
those tradition was
tuvo
very
mucho tiempo
hidden.
oculto. Entonces nuestra generación hizo que esto empezara a salir
And our
y ha
generation
creado
decided to show
de una u
this
otra
to the
forma
rest of the world,
este paso. Por eso te digo
trying
que somos
to-
una generación en
create
transición
this
y nosotros
transition.
hemos adquirido todo esto, estamos recuperando
And
nuestra
the-
lengua,
and then
estamos
we have
recuperando
been trying to
tradiciones que se habían
recover
perdido
our language,
y
our
precisamente
traditions.
el hecho de que nuestros abuelos fueran
And
un poco egoístas
precisely
por
the
miedo,
fact
¿no?
that, our
Hizo que muchas
grandfather
personas no supieran algunas cosas.
were
Nosotros
a
hoy
little
día,
bit
para poder
selfish because of the
invitar a
fear,
los jóvenes, lo estamos invitando precisamente a esto, a
means
nuestras
that
tradiciones,
we
donde te
don't know
decían, no
a
puedes
lot of things
participar
that
porque
we
eres chico o no puedes
And
participar porque eres
usually
mujer.
our grandfather
Hubo un
used to
tiempo
tell us,
inclusive
well, you
que
cannot participate
las
because you
tradiciones
are
se
two
traspasaban en
kids
puros
and you
hombres
are woman,
y
and
dejaban
the
de lado a las
tradition
mujeres.
used to
Hoy día las
cross
mujeres
over
estamos
the
empoderadas
time
en todo el
only
mundo,
through men,
así
but
que
today
ya
it's
estamos en
not
todos
like
lados,
this,
hemos logrado
where
entrar a
everyone
muchos
has a woman.
lugares secretos,
So we
tradiciones
have
que
been
eran
able
muy
to
ocultas. Entonces
be
nosotros
part
como
of the
generación lo que
hidden
estamos haciendo es
traditions,
precisamente llevar a los jóvenes
and
a
this
estas tradiciones,
is what
que
we
sean
have
parte de la
been trying to
siembra, que sean
change
parte de las
now.
cosechas, que
To
sean parte
transfer
de
this
estos pagos,
knowledge to
que
new
vayan a la montaña
generations,
y
whatever
creo que
people are
los jóvenes
women
que nos
or
están siguiendo
men,
han aprendido bastante
Indian
y
people have
necesitamos
learned a
también de
lot about
afuera,
this.
necesitamos de estos estudios científicos,
And we need
porque
obviously
muchas veces también
those
fueron
scientific
científicos que hicieron
studies.
estudios y que nunca mandaron los resultados, entonces tú dices,
Many
pucha,
times we have
la gente
scientists that
ve a un
came to our
científico, no
lands,
queremos nada,
make
porque,
a lot of
pero hoy día
studies
no,
and
es
then
diferente,
left the
nosotros somos
territory.
este gancho, somos
And
la
today we want
generación
them
que estamos
to give
llevando
the results
personas de
back
afuera para que nos
and to
expliquen,
bring
para
new
que entendamos
people from
todo
outside to
todo esto que pasa
understand
aquí,
this new
porque tú
technology
cuando
and what is
viajas te das
happening
cuenta
here
realmente que estamos en
in
una
those
burbuja,
forum.
pero también
When
te das
we
cuenta que
travel,
tenemos
we
los mismos
understand
problemas
that
que
we are in a
tienen
kind of
todas
bubble,
las comunidades indígenas de todo el mundo.
and that we also
Entonces,
have the
para
same
nosotros es súper
problem that the
importante
older
hacer
or
alianza
other
y
native
buscar
people
también a estos
around the
científicos,
world.
a esta gente que
So it's
enseña,
important to share
porque
knowledge
nosotros
with
ya estamos
scientists,
recuperando a los
with
jóvenes
teachers,
para que sean parte y
because we
conozcan
want
nuestra
to
cultura.
recover
Pero
young
nos falta
people
también esta parte
from our
de
culture,
entender el mundo
to be able to
con
understand
datos,
the world with data,
con estudios. Así
studies,
que de esa forma nosotros estamos haciendo que los jóvenes vuelvan y es un
to be
desafío, como te
able
decía en un
to
comienzo, un
take
desafío
care of the
tan
young
grande
people.
que estamos felices también de poder
So
hacer
we are
alianza.
happy
Nosotros
to
no
be
tenemos
able to do
miedo,
this
no
kind
tenemos
of network.
desconfianza, porque claramente la
When
persona
we don't have
que te va a
fear,
engañar te va a engañar igual, o sea, eso es algo aquí en
we
todos
don't have
lados.
any
Entonces,
kind of,
nosotros ya no tenemos esa desconfianza que había antes y hemos
and
abierto la
trust, we
puerta
know-
para
we
que
understand
otras
that we need
personas
to open
sean
the
parte
door
de
to
este
other
crecimiento,
people to be
porque
part of
no vamos a estar siempre
this
y
team and
necesitamos
this
que el
growth.
joven se empodere,
And we need
así
new
que
people to
ahí
be part
estamos
of
con nuestros
this.
desafíos.
No, I think we're talking about many different kinds of knowledges, and I think there is a lot of power when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with other people, and I think this happens in the academic setting, and I think this also happens in the traditional communities. So when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we can evoke real and true emotions. And this taps into the power of storytelling, and which is basically how we can move people around us and how we can negotiate and move and push things forward and actually achieve things. And in my organization, we work with a storytelling program where we collect stories from young climate and nature activists that are doing awesome things in their hometowns. we collected over 200 stories and we put them in a storytelling map. And the idea is that these young people from many communities feel seen and also empowered, and they feel a sense of collectiveness when they share their stories. And this is also a push for having young people engaged in this movement, and they talk about issues, but they also talk about solutions, and they see that they share many issues, and they could also share some of the solutions for the climate and nature challenges that they are facing on the ground and in their communities. We do like story crafting workshops, and we get the stories and put them on a map. We have like stories from over 60 different countries and with many communities. But one thing that I loved doing last year was a story crafting, a storytelling activity for a youth that is in Syria, because they are young people outside in the outskirts of the climate space. Because when you think about Syria, the first thing that you think of it's war, and it was so cool to hear their stories, and it was also awesome to give the workshops in their original language other than English, because this is a huge challenge, like how we can also engage with these other communities that don't speak English as their first language. And we have, we call them global ambassadors, which are volunteers that work for my organization, our organization called Youth for Nature. And he had one-on-one calls with each one of the participants to teach them how to use VPN in this conflict area. And on the day, like everyone that reached out could do the story crafting workshop and the storytelling workshop. So I feel that we need to do storytelling with care, and we need to show that we can also be vulnerable, and there is a power of like being vulnerable and sharing the challenges among ourselves.
Thank you. And actually, we have an online participant, Charlotte Morgensen, who is the program director at the Volux Fountain. And also the same question to you, if you can hear us. So the same question also to you, if you would like to, thank you, share any of your experiences and how you communicate and to extract the information from all the complexity knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you. No, I think it's really valuable to include young people. I agree with Peter. Then, why do we have the need to highlight that young people are involved? But I think when we look at COP29 and the fact that not many delegations has young people on their delegation, like they have for customs to do when they go to UNEA and also the CBD, I think there is a need to increase the engagement with young people, telling them the science, making stories out of the science that are there, making their information that we all have available to young people. I think this is really important. We have created, I'm an older generation, so we have created this world that we have right now, where you are sitting at COP29, I'm sitting in Copenhagen, and seeing that maybe we're not getting the results that we really want to combat climate change. So I think it's really important that you give the possibility for young people to get all the knowledge that are out there, making them take their own decisions on what is worth supporting and what is not supporting. I think it's excellent to bring in culture with poetry, literature, video games, whatever that make young people interested in the issues that we are all working towards, whether conservation on land, conservation at sea. I think it's really important that you see what kind of information are needed and how you actually inform people and how they perceive and receive the information that are there. We, as the Velux Foundation, are very adamant that all our grantees are very supported and very inclusive of everything and everyone. We want the information that we are sort of being able to provide young people, being able to provide society, that is available for everyone. And we're also making sure that the information is available in all kind of different ways of communicating. And I think that literature, poetry, video games, music for that matter, I think that this is the way forward to engage young people, and we as a foundation are very much working towards that. I want to close off by saying that I think it's really important that philanthropy is supporting the engagement of young people. I think this is one of the must that you have to, especially when we as a foundation from Denmark, we are looking into focusing on, the triple crisis, the triple planetary crisis, whether it's pollution, biodiversity, or climate change. I think it's really important that all the information that any of us are gathering is available for young people, for them to take an informed decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And so we have concluded the sessions with very important deliverables and to make in simplicity rather than in complexity. And now we are transitioning from this section to our next session. We look forward, after revisiting all our current good experiences, we look forward about communicators for the future. So yeah, I'll give the floor to Patricia.
Thank you very much, Johan. So about communicator, about the future, our first question for all of you is how do you teach university students to be communicators? Because this is something really important. It's not only about contents, but it's also to be citizenships and have values and to be able to communicate those values. So I want to start with you, Charlotte. Otherwise, I'm going to forget that you are through Zoom, and I cannot forget you, definitely not. So please come back. Charlotte, where are you?
I'm here.
So I'm going to start with you. How do we teach our students to be communicators?
I think it's really important that you, with every education that you have, with every topic that you have, that you actually teach young people or students how you actually communicate the results that you're gathering and the information that you have. We as a foundation are very much looking into how can we actually make, for that, students that are trying to study to be journalists, how can they be better informed about the ocean, the climate, the pollution issues that are out there. But I think in general, it's really important to be able to communicate, and not only on WhatsApp, Snapchat, whatever. I think it's really important to be able to be very elaborate of what you're actually saying. And I think, as I said before, I think philanthropy has a way of actually assisting university or schools to actually be able to make students communicate the issues that they want, communicate better, and trying to make literature and writing skills more of a need to have than nice to have. Because we can see right now when we're looking into school issues, when we're looking into that, people become maybe less and less ready to actually be able to write very well and communicate very well, because everything is done in headlines. And I think this is really important to insist that this is a skill, communication and writing communications, of course also oral, but this is a very important skill for you to actually be heard, whether it's nationally, regionally, or globally. Thank you.
Taking what Charlotte just said, some students have a lot of knowledge about the tools of communication. It doesn't mean that they have the contents or the critical sense to differentiate between the kind of information that we receive. Others, and we discover that during the COVID. I remember that in Chile during the COVID, the government used to say that no worries, everyone is going to be connected. All the kids are going to have a school at all. It was a mass. So we discovered that all the kids doesn't have the same access of tools, and neither to the quality of information. So it's not an easy question, I know, but in this context, how to promote students to be good communicators in terms of access of technology, but also critical sense.
Yeah, maybe I will, as to put some context, I would like to share two striking things for me as I observed with our students. The first thing, and it connects to the idea of that we were saying before, like to put ourselves out of our comfort zone, I would say, our vulnerability. I think in the last 10 years, I've seen a total shift in how students, even students in ecology, react to climate change and to any sustainability, social, environmental aspect. From more passive, more, okay, let's go, we have to convince people there is something that goes wrong and we have to convince them, into something more like frightened, like terrified sometimes. I was sharing this with you, Patricia, before. Like 2 years ago, I was coming from the COP, and my students really wanted me to give them a feedback. It was during the exam period. They were like already maybe stressed with the exam, but they really wanted me to give that. And 2 of my students cried. And so, first, I was really shocked, but maybe we can capitalize on that. And we are talking about storytelling and communication. You were sharing a lot about what you're doing with the students and the idea that poetry, stories, games. I'm not saying it's a therapy, but a bit. It helps. Okay, we have a problem, but we have to connect more with people. And so we can capitalize on that. And the second thing, which I think is important to make them good communicators, something that strikes me is that it's really hard for them to, I mean, when you're a student, you learn something new, like whatever it is, statistics or ecology. And when you start, you don't understand anything. It's really hard to understand. It's hard to get it. And I'm surprised how fast they forget it's hard. And 6 months after, they are supposed to provide the result of their own study, and they forget that it's hard for people to grasp the difficulty of this concept. So it's important for us, I think, to remind them that they always stay connected to who they were before being aware of the concept and the difficulty. So for that, yeah, all the time, I think it's important we connect our students to the ground. So we ask them, of course, to create papers, scientific presentations, but we always ask them to provide outreach material, whatever it is, a video for kids, a video for adults, to go on the streets and explain their stuff on the street. It's really hard during science fairs and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not easy for people, for students, because you're all into understanding the scientific concept, and you change your hat into, okay, calm down, contextualize, and I have to explain that to the public. So, but on higher education, the problem is also that it takes a lot of time to do that. So we have to be good in higher education to save time to do that.
You added something, Pete, about this?
I'm not sure if I may not use that presentation, but we'll see if there's time at the end. But I would just say exactly that, and it's certainly in my own teaching I use prose, poetry, music, art, all manner of ways with the students to encourage them to think that they can use those ways as well, and to model those sorts of behaviours. And I do that from the very first time I meet them in the very first lecture, which isn't really a lecture of the year, right through to when I finish with them, and all the while keep trying to encourage them to think about the significance of the messages, trying to find clarity in the messages, and then find ways of communicating them using whatever means they can in order to affect people, because it is an emotional issue that we're engaged in. And likewise with the students with COPs, you know, my students don't really want to know, really. I think they're worn down by anxiety, and we need to find ways of, you know, some of them do, some of them are angry, you know, so we need to find ways of channeling those those different feelings in different directions. But I'll leave it there because I don't want to say too much in case we come back to me.
Yo creo que en nuestro país es difícil, en nuestro país la educación es privada, entonces tenemos que encontrar este tipo de vías en alguna universidad que sea laica y estatal. Por lo tanto, creo que mediante el lenguaje del amor, nuestra esperanza es empezar con la niñez, con los niños. Estamos igual de otra forma trabajando en el CUNSA con los niños, recuperando nuestra lengua, así que yo creo que va a depender igual de qué país y qué universidad tú tomes, porque lamentablemente no todos tienen acceso a la educación en Chile. En Chile está todo muy dividido en las clases sociales, no es lo mismo ir a una escuela de una población que ir a un colegio particular. No es lo mismo entrar a una universidad cualquiera que a una universidad privada. Entonces, por lo general, creo que estos cambios son difíciles en un país como Chile. De hecho, yo estuve en la universidad el año 2000, 2005 y uno de mis profesores decía que él pensaba que yo no me iba a licenciar porque era india, era el indígena. Entonces, igual todavía en Chile creo que todavía está esto de que hay que cambiar toda la educación, el estilo, y los que tienen suerte o los que tienen buen puntaje, porque más encima para estudiar en Chile a la universidad tienes que acceder a una prueba que te rankea, que te da un puntaje, y si tú logras un puntaje alto recién puedes entrar a la universidad. Creo que en nuestro país es difícil en la universidad, sin embargo estas universidades de otros países extranjeras que están haciendo licenciados, que están ayudando a estudiar cursos cortos, son nuestra solución para complementar lo que los jóvenes están estudiando en la universidad.
That be a complement for those ones that go to university. Maria?
I think we work a lot with students, and especially we work a lot with students that are facing this eco-anxiety that you brought, and how we can deal with this emotional, because this brings emotions, and what kind of information the students are getting, and where they're getting this information, how they're dealing with this information emotionally, thinking that this is the planet Earth that we will inherit for the next years. And what I've seen a lot in our networks, it's like this power of like having solidarity networks, and seeing that you're not alone trying to explain to other people that are not in your field what you're studying. You're not alone when you're trying to bring the traditional, and there's so much oral and traditional knowledge that we have. You're not alone when you're trying to reach out to new people that are just too afraid to even hear about what's happening in this kind of conferences. So I think that when we build the solidarity networks among ourselves, and we can find space to be comfortable, and we can also find space to look at this subject, which is emotional because it affects all of us, but in a way of solidarity and in a way of like trying to find shared solutions. So I love that you say that you spend a lot of time with your students, and I think this is so good, because time is a precious resource that we don't have that much anymore. And building solidarity networks, this takes time, this takes patience, this takes willing to look at the subject and try to make yourself comfortable with it, and try to look for common solutions. So yeah, I think this sums it up.
Thank you so much. And so we come to our last ever question, and thank you for your very inspiring insights to the current communication. And also, like the last question, I want like each of the panelists to briefly summarize that how can we renew the current communication strategy of the multilateralism, which is currently still under stress. So maybe we begin with you.
I honestly don't have an answer. If I had an answer, I would try to do something about it. I think it I don't know how we do it, but we just can't give up. It's too important. I'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you're mentioning multilateralism. Yes, it's a challenge. We see that in different countries in the world. Not sure it's going to be better in the near future. So it connects back, I think, to critical thinking, development of critical thinking and knowledge. And not just let people think that they're smart just because they criticize things, but they have to know how to get this knowledge. And because you're talking about multilateralism, it's also highlighting what does work. Once again, we are at the COP, and it's not easy, but we are all together in that. Some things work really well, like we have seen, like the BBNJ, it's an ocean treaty, which is also the result of multilateralism. Oh, it's hard for a French person to say that. So, well, but my main answer will be, once again, critical thinking and knowledge for everyone and not just for elite.
Bueno, para el estrés, el estudiar es un estrés. Estar en la universidad, la carga académica que uno tiene, por lo menos en las universidades que yo estuve, es un estrés. Por otro lado, el racismo que existe todavía en algunos lugares también es un estrés para uno. Creo que solamente lo mismo, el lenguaje del amor y ver la forma de ayudar a los jóvenes a tener un pensamiento crítico desde antes, desde niños, y empoderarlos en su raíz, en el caso nuestro, para que cuando sean sometidos a situaciones de racismo o de exclusión, ellos tengan la fuerza y estén convencidos de lo que llevan dentro, de lo que es parte de ellos como cultura, no les afecte. Es difícil, es algo complicado.
It's complicated.
My answer to this would be that multilateralism has a lot to learn from storytelling and the power that we can get from having human-centered stories. And sometimes I feel that people in these working spaces forget about the human stories that we have, and they need to remember how global cooperation directly addresses real world challenges, but also real people that are on the ground, and they are facing many challenges, but they're also finding like many solutions. So having the power of storytelling and telling real human stories, I think it's an awesome approach that we are forgetting. As our colleague said, we are wired into like getting knowledge and understanding things through storytelling as human beings. And we must not forget about this when we're talking about multilateralism and when we're talking about parties negotiating in a room. And yeah, we must also not forget about the power of having diversity in multilateralism. So diversity of voices, women, traditional communities, indigenous communities, and youth in these rooms. And having diversity of knowledge, I think it's something that diversity of people and that diversity of stories connect different people from different countries to the same thing that we're trying to address. So yeah.
Thank you. And yeah.
I'm sorry, I was I said I wouldn't say much more, but you've triggered something in me. We also need to tell stories of species, of systems, and even elements. So the 3 PowerPoint slides I was going to show are the story of a calcium atom, and the way in which that calcium atom gets used, goes through different systems, it ends up in a marine environment, comes back onto a terrestrial environment, and the way in which it connects with human involvement within that landscape. And you can tell the story of a calcium atom and bring in so many parts of human and natural ecosystems. And also you can do the same with carbon, you can do the same with hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and think about the way in which the calcium builds into marine organisms, etc., etc. You can do all of that, and we need people to build stories around atoms and the way in which those atoms interact and the way in which those atoms become molecules that we are part of. And, you know, many people have said this, but Carl Sagan said it beautifully. We are stardust. We are made from a supernova, and we need to remember that we are made of stuff, and all of that stuff gives us the the awareness that we have and all of these beautiful human capacities and qualities that we have. But we need the storytellers to talk about those atoms and those molecules and all that comes from that. So thank you for your prompt. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for this beautiful quote. And now we give our final floor to Charlotte online. If you can hear us, and yeah, we would like you to conclude this question.
Thank you so much. I think multilateralism is very important, and I think the fact that UNIA touched upon it and made a new decision on multilateralism, I think it's really important that we move forward with the decisions that are already made, and I think young people, as the same as the rest of us, I think it's really important that we keep our decision makers, our ministers, and everyone that is working on these issues, on negotiations, keep them aware of the decisions that they've already made, and whether it's environmental ministers, climate ministers, or whatever. I think it's really important that with multilateralism, I think this is the way forward for all of us to actually combat the planetary crisis. So I think also for young people, I think it's really important to educate everyone. What is it actually the UN is doing? Where is it the benefits are within the UN? And how can you bring that forward and actually support multilateralism? Thank you so much.
And we conclude these sessions with your critical thinking, the critical thoughts, the storytelling, and also menacing about that. So I will give the floor back to Patricia to conclude.
No, again, thank you very much to all of you and Charlotte. Unfortunately, we don't have time to more conversation. We wish to keep you here and have all the day with you. But thank you, and I hope to see you soon. Let's take a picture with all of you.